High achieving, very driven, successful women often get hit the hardest by postpartum. You no longer call the shots.
Welcome back to the BeHerVillage podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin McGrayus, and today I'm interviewing Jaclyn Buckingham. Jaclyn is the owner of the New Mom School Edmond in Oklahoma, a brand new resource providing postpartum support and education to new moms during the challenging early months of motherhood. Not only is she a powerhouse mom of two, but she's also a VP at a consulting firm, managing it all like a boss. After her own battle with postpartum depression following the birth of her daughter, Jaclyn decided to take matters into her own hands, filling a crucial gap in maternal health right here in Oklahoma. Today, we're diving into her inspiring journey, the challenges of new motherhood, and why every mama deserves a village. This is part one of a two-part conversation. Jaclyn shares her story of being a high-achieving, ambitious professional climbing the corporate ladder and then facing motherhood. It's a really good listen. Enjoy. Well, Jaclyn, thank you so much for coming to talk to me today. I'm so excited to learn more about your story and have insight into your postpartum experience and how you're bringing that experience into your own community to make motherhood and postpartum feel better for others around you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here, Caitlin. I knew when we connected that there was this common thread between us that we share so much of the same mission with Be Her Village. And so I'm just really pumped to have this conversation and talk about the ways that New Mom School is sort of breaking the mold and changing the postpartum experience for new moms all over the country, but what I'm seeing firsthand here in Oklahoma as well.
Oh, it's amazing. I know I felt the exact same way the first time we got on a call. It was just like, oh, we're working on the same thing. And the same thing is essentially using our experiences to make the next person's experience better. I know certainly my postpartum time felt really lonely. It felt lonely. It felt isolating. It felt like all the things I did to prepare in the pregnancy time didn't actually help me when it came to actually taking care of a baby, and that has propelled my work. I would love to hear a little bit about what your postpartum, how old are your kids? I mean, I know you have a 6-month-old, right? So you're like kind of still in the thick of things. What
Yes.
was your postpartum experience like? And maybe what was the second time like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've learned in the last year that every time you have a new baby, you become a new mom all over again because every experience is different. But the postpartum experience that really catapulted me into this new mom school venture was actually with my firstborn, with my daughter. So to kind of walk down memory lane with you, I spent the greater part of my 20s climbing the corporate ladder at a big technology company. And I was a very regimented, disciplined person. And I really felt like I was unstoppable and I could do anything I set my mind to. And then we started down the path of trying to get pregnant. And that was the first time I was really confronted with the reality that there are things out of my control. And we fought this infertility battle for a little over a year, which I know some people fight for much longer than that. And it was incredibly difficult every single month to face the ups and downs of hope and disappointment, right? And we started going down the path of fertility treatments and we were getting ready for IUI. And we had done all the tests and all the prep appointments, and the next appointment was supposed to be the IUI procedure. And somehow, some way, we conceived naturally before that happened. And it just completely took us by surprise. And we were over the moon, ecstatic to finally have a baby on the way. And I'm one of those weirdos that loves being pregnant. I think it's such an empowering experience. I don't have a lot of the symptoms that come with pregnancy, no nausea, anything like that. And I just really enjoyed the experience and relished in having this life growing inside me and feeling so connected to that baby. And I just remember thinking, again, feeling like I was invincible and unstoppable. Like, wow, this must be the hard part. Everyone talks about how hard pregnancy is, and we fought so hard to get here. We wanted this baby so bad. And I was just imagining my postpartum experience, thinking that I would have this cute little accessory that I would bring out to coffee with me, and I would read all these books. And it was just going to be this relaxing time for me to connect with my baby. Wrong. I could not have been more wrong. It was not like that at all. And I think that everything kind of started to shift at my 40-week appointment. My OB was doing a routine cervix check, and my water broke. And it was an accident, we believe. And we went to get induced. I didn't want to be induced. And so it set off that trigger for me of feeling like I wasn't in control and feeling like things weren't happening the way I wanted them to happen. And we were both healthy. The birth went fine, but I just entered the postpartum phase in a weird headspace. And then as sleep deprivation takes its hold over the next several days, I started to sink into this fog that I now know was postpartum depression and anxiety. But at the time, I didn't know what I was supposed to feel like. And I felt an immense amount of shame for not feeling that bliss and that fulfillment and those warm and fuzzies that everybody talks about. I didn't bond with my daughter initially. It probably took 6 to 8 weeks for me to feel something there. And I remember sharing that with a close relative that I didn't feel the bond. And the way that they looked at me was like I was a monster, which reinforced the shame that I was already feeling, right? And so I really spiraled into this feeling of like, I'm not cut out for this. I don't have the motherhood chip. Like something is missing, something's broken. And it really put me in a dark place. Unfortunately, I had friends that had children recently. That none of them lived close by, but I started reaching out to them, texting them, and I was finding out from them that what I was feeling was actually very normal and just something that nobody talks about. And they pointed me in the direction of resources that I needed, whether it was practical resources for how to soothe my very fussy baby or different Instagram accounts to follow that could help me reframe my mindset, or really just a listening ear. And I would say those mom friends became my lifelines and helped pull me out of this fog. And fast forward to about 8 or 9 months in, I started to really fall in love with motherhood. And I have this incredible bond and relationship with my daughter now that I wish so badly I could go back in time to that person who was 3, 4 weeks postpartum and tell her how it was all going to turn out. Because when you're so deep in it, you can't see the future. You can't imagine that it's going to get better and things are going to look so much different. And I am so thankful for the other mothers in my circle that helped get me there. And I just felt called to do the same for other moms that might be struggling, who might not have those lifelines, who might be the first in their friend group to have a child, or maybe their friends had a baby a long time ago and they're the last to kind of enter this phase, or whatever their situation is. Because the reality is that postpartum does not discriminate whether you have a lot of resources or a few resources, whether you are going it alone or you have a supportive partner. We all have a different experience, and it's always challenging in its own unique way. And so it just was ingrained in me that I want to give back and create this environment and this village for other moms that need it. So fast forward to new mom school. A friend of mine lived out in Newport and she had twins. And I remember just checking in on her all the time because I was thinking she must be going through it because she has two babies and I was going through it with one baby, and she was doing just fine. And posting on Instagram all of these events she was going to with her other mom friends who had babies the same age. And I was asking her, what hack do you have that I didn't? Like, how are you okay? And I was not okay. And her answer was very simple. She just said, well, everybody here does new mom school and it's great. And that just made me sit back and ask, what is new mom school? And as she explained it to me, it just dawned on me, oh my gosh, this is everything I needed in my postpartum experience. And I'm watching it have this real impact on my friend. And I had to learn more about it. And as I dug into it, I found that they had just started franchising, and I just knew I had to bring it to Oklahoma. And from there, the rest is history. And we just opened a few months ago and have been running classes, and it's just been phenomenal to see it all come to life.
Oh, well, congratulations, first of all, on the success and the launch and the opening. I can't tell you how much I resonate with so much of your story. And having community is so powerful. And I think it's this really overlooked part of motherhood. I think it's a really overlooked, um, it's almost like a medicine, right? It's almost like it's so critical to our experience as mothers. And it's not because our community solves our problems, right? Our communities don't make our baby sleep better, although they might have good tips. Our communities don't solve for those feelings that we're having, but they validate them. They often make us feel less alone, right? Like there is just this peace that is so critical in motherhood. And that peace is other mothers. That peace is other people who understand our lived experience. And it's hard. I'm listening to you, having been someone that has been through it. And I found my mom friends later on. I didn't have my mom friends in that immediate postpartum time, and I wish I did. I mean, for my first one, I definitely didn't. My second one, much more so. My third one, much more so, just because you've already sort of like gathered the mom friends from the library and from the whatever. But it wasn't quite what you're describing of like a group of moms who had the same age baby as me who understood exactly what I was going through in that moment. And the power of adult female friendships and adult female friendships that are rooted in a motherhood experience cannot be overstated. It's absolutely incredible. I want to go back and just like underline one of the things that you spoke about in your story, which I think is a really common theme, or at least it feels common for me, is this lack of control that we get sort of confronted with head on when having a baby. It is really normal for us before we have kids to sort of think that even if it's just a facade of control, it feels like we have control over our schedule. We have control over what food we eat and when we eat it and where we go and how we spend our money. And like there's this idea of, even professional, climbing the ladder, there are things, actions we can take and then reactions or, consequences that happen based on those actions. And then you enter into this motherhood transition and experience, and there are so many things outside of our control. First and foremost, the medical system, right? Just the
Hmm.
quality of care that you get, the way people interact with you, but then also those the medical parts that are just not within our control that have such an impact on us, like our baby's heart rate during labor, or the method with which they're born, or the feelings and emotions and hormones of early postpartum, or how our breastfeeding or baby feeding journey goes. Like there's just so many things that we have like a certain amount of control over, but at the end of the day, you really get confronted head on with this understanding of the control we have being almost nothing, right? and
Yes.
and the implications of that. It was a really difficult transition for me. It sounds like it was for you, and I think it's a really common thing that of all the things, right? Like we love our babies, we're maybe not sleeping as much, now we're taking care of a newborn, we're recovering our bodies, but there's also this like emotional evolution that happens to go from somebody who had a baby or who didn't have children to somebody who has a baby. You're sort of like dealing with also this existential crisis of like, what is real, what is not real, what can I control, what can I not control. And I love that you found that community to help you through that because your community didn't offer you control, right? Like nobody, but your community offered you this idea of like, oh no, yeah, we're all in the same exact boat. Come hang out with us over here. We can help each other to manage this new reality. It's a little more chaotic. It's a lot more exciting. There's tiny little humans that are in charge of us in every single way, and we're all in this together. And somehow that just feels better for us.
Yes, 100%. And I think something that we've found is that high achieving women, very driven, successful women often get hit the hardest by postpartum because they are so used to deriving their fulfillment from how much they can achieve and produce and get done. And then this little human enters your universe, and all of a sudden, you no longer call the shots. And your definition of productivity has to change, and everything that you defined your own success and value and worth by changes. And it is this existential crisis where you have to come to terms with the fact that you are no longer that person. That version of you has come to an end, but out of that, you're being reborn as a new version of yourself. And what I didn't realize then that is so beautiful now that I know, looking back, that transition to motherhood and how that goes is that yes, there was this version of me that I had to part with and mourn, but I was growing into a version of myself that is much richer, much stronger, wiser, more whole, more grounded, and more empathetic, that feels deeper. And it's such a brutal transition. But once you come out of the fog and you're able to look back on that and see how you've been able to build this new life for yourself, it's amazing and it's so fulfilling. And you are grateful to that version of you that got you to that point, but you've evolved beyond that. And you have this sacred bond with every other woman that's gone through that transition period and has felt that same weight and that same burden, that same grief. And it's great when we can bring women together and they can support one another, because when we work together through that, we can accomplish anything. And so the community aspect is a really important part, that we can introduce women to each other in the same phase of motherhood. So one of the things that sets New Mom School apart from some other programs is we strategically schedule classes so that women are going through it with other women whose babies were born within the same month. So they're in the trenches together, because we know if you're on week 4 postpartum, you're in a much different place than someone who's on month 4 postpartum. You're dealing with different challenges. There's things that you figured out at month 4 that you haven't yet at week 4. And it just helps to have somebody that's right there with you that can relate to what you're going through. So all of our classes will have their own text message thread, and they can support each other at 3 a.m. when baby won't go back down after a feed, or baby has a weird rash. They can kind of console one another and help each other through whatever's going on. And it's just a great community. They meet outside of class for coffee and lunch. They introduce their spouses, and they become this sort of sisterhood that exists outside of class and lasts much longer than the 8-week series. And so that's at the core of our foundation. But it's so much more than the community as well. There's also the education aspect. So we partner with certified experts in the community on everything that moms need to know, be it pelvic health. There's a lot of women that may not even know what pelvic floor physical therapy is, right? And it's just not talked about enough. And so you might think that you have to deal with the physical aftermath of birth for the rest of your life, but there's resources and therapy and things that you can do to help with that. And so we'll put them in contact with those experts. They'll come to class, present on an evidence-backed curriculum so that the moms can leave feeling a little bit better equipped, a little bit more confident. And now they're connected with a resource. So if they need more help, they don't have to Google at 2 a.m. They just can reach directly out to that expert and schedule more support. We also have professionals in mental health, sleep. We have an on-site lactation consultant that does a free breastfeeding support group every week. And there's so many more experts than I can even name. And meeting with each of these experts individually, if you were to book a one-on-one consultation with all of them, one, you would be on a 6-week wait list just to see them because it is such a resource desert out here and the demand is so high for these professionals. But two, it would cost you over $1,000 because those one-on-one consultations are very expensive versus you can sign up for our 8-week course. If for a fraction of the cost, you can get connected with every resource that we know you're going to need in those critical first months, learn what you need to know, and then additional support is there if you need it. So it's an incredible pairing of community and education and support so that mom feels like they have that friendship gap filled that so many new parents struggle with. It's a loneliness epidemic right now. They're also learning what they need to know in a digestible format, and they have a safe place to go to process whatever it is that they're going through. Because the other reality is that you come home with baby and your Facebook algorithm knows that, and all of a sudden you get flooded with every single reel about parenting that there is, and it can become super overwhelming. So we're going to cut out all the noise and break it down into bite-sized pieces into a program that is approachable for those moms and they feel a little bit less overwhelmed and empowered when they leave.
That was part one of my conversation with Jaclyn. Be sure to check out the show notes where you can find all the information you need on New Mom School and New Mom School Edmond. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast so that you never miss an episode. Next week, we're going to be dropping part 2 of our conversation with Jaclyn, all about the loneliness epidemic. It is a can't miss episode. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, bye.